For those of you who are not aware, this forum was originally planned as part of Lynn's Martin Luther King Day festivities this past February, but was scheduled during a day that became a snow emergency. So thank you very much to Dr. Crane for allowing us to reschedule this important event for the people of the Highlands neighborhood. And I just had an email that I just wanted to let you guys know that I got from the Human Rights Commission. The full council of the Human Rights Commission unanimously voted to recommend to the City Council that voting be restored to the Ford School. So we would like to thank the Lynn Human Rights Commission very much. And thank you for being here at the Robert L. Ford School. My name is Wendy Joseph, and I moved to Lynn about 12 years ago, and I live right down the street on Rockaway. I'm a coordinator for the Highlands Coalition. My co-host tonight is Jim Tarr. He's a fellow Highlands Coalition member and a community activist, currently working for Charlie Gallo for state rep. Charlie Gallo of school committee, currently running for state rep. Donna Capola, school committee. And Patty Capana, school committee. Thank you for being here. Love to see school committee at these things. I want you to stand up if you feel that you have ever been discriminated in Lynn or wherever you have lived in the United States because of your religion. Anyone? That is good to see. That is good to see. How many of you think that you've been discriminated against in housing or trying to get an apartment? Very good. Please keep standing. Discriminated getting a loan from a bank or a credit union? How many of you think that you have been racially profiled by the police?
Stand up.
Stand up, please. And keep standing. How many of you have been the subject of domestic abuse or violence? Okay, I wanted to let you know, if you know someone who has been, that the woman in the purple with the hawk t-shirt, she is for help for abused women and children, and you should go and see her after the forum because she has some resources for your friend. Okay, that was from a long time ago what that name is. Okay. How many men and women here sometimes feel uncomfortable walking down the street alone if you see some people of a different race or color coming towards you the other way? This is pretty good. How many women know that they are getting paid less money for your job than if a man was doing the same job? Is anyone still sitting? Yes, we are. Okay, how many of you still sitting know anyone who has had any of these issues? Stand up. Yes. And I think that most of the people do know. Thank you. So this is how it feels when we're all standing together. It feels pretty good, right? So we should give ourselves a hand. The people up here on stage are activists for social justice in word and deed. Now lately, activism has become kind of a dirty word. Why do some people call themselves activists and others avoid the term? When does activism create change? How does activism create change? It creates change when people stand together, just like you did now. It creates change when people talk together, as we will be doing this evening. And it creates change when people feel empowered by coming together and talking together, and then finding out that we can work together on solutions that help all of us together.
Hi everybody, and thank you for attending tonight, the Highlands Coalition's second annual Equal Rights Forum. As Wendy said, this was initially planned in February for events that were happening around that time, particularly Martin Luther King Jr. Day. This is an issue that is very prevalent around that time. We all start thinking about it, but the truth is, it matters all the time. And that's why we have things like the Human Rights Commission and other organizations that are fighting for change and fighting for a greater level of equality for all people. And with that, I'd like to introduce our first panelist. Andre Green has served on the Somerville Human Rights Commission since August of 2013. He was an inaugural participant in the Somerville Academy for Innovative Leadership, a collaboration between the City of Somerville and the Kennedy School of Government in order to encourage better leadership practices among citizens of Somerville. For the last 5 years, he's been an employee of Youth Build USA, one of the national leaders in anti-poverty work among young people across the country. And Andre is married, and just 6 months ago welcomed his first child, Madeline. His wife and daughter are here. Ladies and gentlemen, Andre Green. And if you'd like to add a few words.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank the Lynn Human Rights Commission for having us here. I think these kind of sessions are really good for building community and building that sense that we're all in this together, which is kind of what brings me to this work. Martin Luther King, I think it's worth noting that this was originally done around his holiday, but he used to talk about building the beloved community. And that's really what this is all about for me. There's this sense of, we live in an amazing, wonderful country with opportunities and possibilities unheard of in all of human history. And I have this simple but radical idea that those opportunities and possibilities should be available to everyone. And so, work of the Lynn Human Rights Commission, the Somerville Human Rights Commission, the organizations up here on this panel with me, are all really about making sure that everyone in this room is able to participate fully in the life of this country without being limited by their race, their gender, their sexual orientation, their religious beliefs, any of that stuff. Because as a country, we're at our best when we're all able to play along. And so that's really what brings me in. And I thought it was funny when you were talking about how activism is a dirty word, because I think I'm one of those people who tends to use it that way. For me, I don't like the term activist because it implies that I'm trying to push an agenda, when really it's about bringing people in and making sure that everyone's voice is heard and we're all trying to navigate this together. And it's not necessarily about making sure that my opinions are the ones that win, as it is making sure that whatever opinions do win, they win because we all talk them through it. So for me, it's all about participation.
Our next panelist was born and raised in Peru. His name is Julio Ruiz, and he started activism as an organizer for Compassion International, which advocates for children living in extreme poverty. As an immigrant to the U.S., he faced exploitation, racism, discrimination, and unsafe working conditions. But within 2 years was elected shop steward for his job at Logan Airport, and now holds the position of lead organizer at the Workers Center for Economic Justice in Lynn. Although the Workers Center specializes in helping workers fight unfair practices, they also focus on organizing to create new leadership in this field, where the people coming for help are allowed active participation in deciding the direction of their own case. Julio would like to thank the other members of the Workers Center who have made him feel part of a team since day one. So, ladies and gentlemen, Julio.
Good evening, thanks for having us here. For me, it's a privilege to be the organizer at the Workers Center for Economic Justice, because I'm also part of the working class, and I remember when I decided to move to the United States, I came with the dreams as many of us here, and I got the struggles of working in unsafe conditions, exploitation. So I think from this experience encouraged me to become more active in my community and also in my workplace. So now that I'm the organizer at this worker center, for me is one of the greatest opportunities in my life, because what we want to do is not only to focus in resolve individual cases, but also we believe strongly that the only way to fight the people who's in power is through organizing. I think organizing is the key, organizing our community. So instead of spending all our time resolving individual cases, we want to focus on organizing the people of our community.
Our next panelist is Bob Reynolds. He grew up in the America Park project housing, and he is no stranger to the cause of equal rights and struggling for social justice. A GE machinist by trade, Bob Reynolds has decades of experience as a community activist, and he's really been involved in the city of Lynn. It's his home, and we all know that Bob loves the city of Lynn. And he is currently the Essex County Community Organization, member of the board of directors there, and he recently came on board the Highlands Coalition board of directors as treasurer. So ladies and gentlemen, Bob Reynolds.
Thanks, Jim. I guess I'm here representing ECHO. As Jim said, I'm not only on the board of directors, but I've been vice president, been past president for 5 years. Like 3 years ago, my term came up. And ECHO is a diverse coalition of institutions and congregations from Lynn to Gloucester. They've been around some 33 years, starting out in Beverly and Salem and Peabody, and moving into Lynn in the early 90s. And they work with people in the communities on the North Shore to improve the lives of poor and working people and their families, to better their conditions, to actually not lead them, but give them the tools to lead themselves. It's one of our rules, don't do for others what they can do for themselves. We also think that people should be working in those communities with their decision makers, whether they're in the business or political spheres, and working with those folks to try to make positive changes, especially on the economic side of people's lives. In Lynn, we have the dubious distinction of having some really bad statistics when it comes to that for individuals and families. And so ECHO is housed here in Lynn, and we're really happy to work with groups like the Highlands Coalition, North Shore Labor Council, and many others. Regardless of people's faith, because we largely are a coalition of congregations, we seem to find common ground, regardless of what faith we share. We've had a long history, and we want to continue to work in the cities and towns on the North Shore. We're expanding. We're up to like 25 organizations now, and so we're happy to be here. Again, thank you for having me on the panel.
Thank you. Bob Reynolds, everyone. And Bob, I'm very jealous of you right now. You get to wear the baseball cap. I have to wear the suit. I like to have the... Will you do me a favor, swap for a second? We got Ford school hats for everybody, all the panelists who are participating. Swap it out. If you're going to go with a hat, go with that one. Our next panelist is Laura McGowan. Laura McGowan's been working with at-risk families in Lynn for over 15 years. She's an adjunct professor at North Shore Community College in the Human Services Department and a social worker at the Connery Elementary School, where she partnered with the Food Project, servicing over 10,000 people in the last 2 years through their monthly food pantry, one of only 8 schools in the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts to do so. She is the vice chair of the Lynn Human Rights Commission and is proud to have been on the subcommittee which recently recommended to the full City Council and the Elections Commission to return voting to the Ford School. Ladies and gentlemen, Laura McGowan.
Hi, good evening. How are you? Good. I'm an immigrant from Mexico. I came here when I was 5 years old with my parents and my 4 brothers and sisters. I know about what it's like to grow up in poverty, what it's like to grow up in a bilingual home, and what it's also like to have 2 parents that value the power of an education. Out of the 6 children that they had, we all ended up going to college. We all ended up having great jobs. We are all very involved with our community. I am very honored to be here only because you can be part of a collaborative effort to just ensure that people are okay, to ensure that people are being held, and to ensure that everybody's human rights are valued and everybody has a voice and a say. I'm one of the only bilingual school social workers in the city of Lynn, which in itself speaks volumes. When I'm at North Shore Community College teaching in the Human Services Department, what I do see, and it speaks volumes of Lynn and what the teachers in Lynn are doing, I see all of these minority and non-traditional students enrolling at North Shore Community College. When I was going through my associates, my bachelor's, and my master's, I was the only Hispanic person that graduated in my class, and I felt alone. I felt like I was doing things in isolation. Now, enrolled at North Shore Community College, I see a lot of women, I see a lot of minorities, and I do see a lot of non-traditional students, like people that wouldn't necessarily had would have enrolled in college when they were younger. They're older applicants, so you know there is hope for our schools to receive people that mirror the population. So it's coming, and it's through all of the hard work that's being done right now in the public school system. I do value Lynn Public Schools. I do believe like it's evolving and it's growing and it's supporting this change for activism through like wraparound change. I'm a very big believer that we're allocating the services and we're opening our eyes to ensuring that we are being represented as far as like a community of diverse in who we are. That's it.
Thank you, Laura. Our final panelist is Attorney Rasan Hall, who currently serves as the Deputy Director of the premier civil rights organization in the Boston area. His work includes policy and legislative advocacy, community outreach, and maintaining a litigation caseload that includes voting rights, police misconduct, and public accommodations. He is the chair of the Board of Directors for the Massachusetts Legal Assistance Corporation, volunteers with the Boston Lawyers Group, and was Assistant District Attorney in Suffolk County for over 8 years. In addition to being a practicing attorney, Rasan is an ordained reverend in the African Methodist Episcopal Church and holds a Master of Divinity degree from Andover Newton Theological School. The Highlands Coalition is pleased to welcome Rasan Hall.
Good evening, everyone. It's certainly a pleasure to be here. I'm honored to be in attendance and a part of this panel with so many esteemed guests. As was read in my bio, I'm the Deputy Director of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, where we handle race and national origin discrimination cases. And so the mosaic of cases that we see cover just about every demographic in the greater Boston area and the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. We see a lot of employment discrimination cases. We're also looking into a lot of education issues, particularly around school discipline and the growth of charter schools and the problems where school discipline and charter schools meet. We also have a low-wage immigrant workers' rights project where we're trying to find out about the working conditions that a lot of low-wage immigrant workers are facing, some of the abuses and exploitation that they're up against. And I'm sure many of you are well aware of it. If you don't know it directly, you know it through people that you know. And so we try to advocate on behalf of those people and try to bring litigation. We also are very concerned about voting rights. We were involved in the process of the redistricting that happened in 2011 based on the census and really advocated for an increase in majority, minority, representative districts at the state representative level and the state senate level. So it's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to hearing more from the audience, what questions and concerns you all have.
Listen, I have one question for you, because you are a lawyer. I wanted to ask, and I asked Charlie Gallo this too a little while ago. Where does Esquire come from? What is that? Like, they put it at the end of your name when you become a lawyer.
Yeah.
Is there any like origin story to that?
I'm sure there is. I don't know it.
They don't teach you that in law school?
No, there's a lot of things they don't teach us in law school.
That was a letdown. All right. The first question, Bob, but we're going to open it up to the public, and we wanted to get your feedback. So if anybody had any questions that they would like to ask the panel, or any issues that they're facing in the city of Lynn that they would like to talk about, or any issues at all that you think is important to address, just by show of hands, we'll start taking some questions.
What's being done in the city to register new voters?
Our question was, what is being done in the city to register new voters? And we'll open that question up to the panel.
Hi, I'm also a part of the Lynn Democratic Delegates, and I know that we're having forums like at Lynn Community Health Center during the Cambodian New Year, where you're bringing voter registration there, and you're also telling them about all of the candidates for governor's race, for congressmen, and also for state rep. And I know that I've been part of a couple of campaigns this past couple of years, and the people that are running are also, they have teams of people that, that are knocking on doors, and if people aren't registered to vote, they're also being innovative in the sense that they're carrying registrations with them too, so that people can register. Because we do have an untapped, a lot of people that aren't registered, and it's untapped.
And that's done in several languages?
Yes.
I can't say specifically what's going on in Lynn, but one of the things that we're involved in, and I think this is information for you to take out to the people that you know, the organizations that you're working with. We're currently involved in a lawsuit against the Secretary of the Commonwealth and the Department of Health and Human Services. The National Voter Registration Act, which is known as the Motor Voter Bill, it requires not only the RMV to provide voter registration opportunities, but it also requires public assistance offices to provide voter registration opportunities and information. So if people are going to sign up for WIC or food stamps or Medicaid or Mass Health, the offices that they do that at should be asking them whether or not they want to register to vote. And if so, they should be providing them with the registration form to do that. There's also pending legislation, an election modernization bill, which is really trying to move the Commonwealth forward and making access to the polls a lot easier. And one of the provisions of the election modernization bill is that there would be online registration. It's not in effect yet. It's on the table. Hopefully it gets out of committee and can be voted on, but those are some things that are in the works.
I have kind of an addendum to that question, the first one. I wanted to ask, is there anything going on in the city of Lynn or in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to have like a same-day voter registration effort? Like when you show up to the polls, any polls in your neighborhood, wherever you're where you might be registered to vote, or maybe even in your city or town, if you show up that day, is there any kind of effort at all to get that?
That's been a part of that same bill that's
Yeah.
being proposed, so yes, I don't know what type of success it will have, but that's certainly something that has been advocated for in the past.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, guys. At the Ford School, voting is always on our minds. Does anyone else have any other questions?
I'm going to go for Bob Reynolds, specifically because he's been doing this probably for the longest amount of time as being an activist, if I can call you that, if I can dare to do that. Can you describe a couple of ECHO's greatest victories, something that you can point to let people know maybe more about what ECHO can do?
Well, ECHO sort of had two lives. It's, like I said, it started out in the Salem area as actually an offshoot of NASCAP, which is the anti-poverty agency in Beverly, Salem, Peabody area. So I would say during the time of 1981 to 1991, probably the greatest victory was, ECHO was had a real adversarial relationship with Salem Hospital on a number of issues. And ECHO was very active in the Point neighborhood of Salem, working first with welfare recipients and particularly the Dominican population in the Point neighborhood. And there was a lot of people that had healthcare access problems. Well, it took many, many years, but if you drive down, I believe, Congress Street, you'll see Salem Family Health Center. And that's directly attributable to ECHO's activity and agitation against Salem Hospital and North Shore Medical Center. And it's a wonderful community health location. So I think in that period of time, that was the greatest victory. When they moved into Lynn in the early 90s, I would say our greatest victories were a project called Project Unity, which came up, really pushed opening up branch libraries. At the time that people remember in the early 90s when Bill Clinton said he's going to put 100,000 police officers on the streets of this country, well, there was a development project in Lynn called the Community Policing Program, CLTs, and it was only about 7 or 8 officers. And ECHO worked with the police chief at that time, Jack Hollow, and Deputy Police Chief Jack Suslak, to really expand that from 8 to, I think at the height where they would make maybe 32 community police officers, City of Lynn. The best one, I believe, my own personal opinion, was up here in the Highlands Coalition with police officers on and bike patrols. The officers got to know everybody in the community and all the kids and won their trust. And unfortunately, along came a president by the name of George Bush and got rid of all that grant program. So we lost that community policing. But we have the largest community policing program on the North Shore, and I would argue one of the best.
Do you know where those bikes are now?
Excuse me?
Just wanted to know if you know where those bikes went to. I have a question for Andre Green. Thank you for coming to Lynn from Somerville. Can you describe some of the things that the Somerville Commission is working on, which might be specific to Somerville, or at least different from what we're working on here in Lynn?
Well, I think on the big picture, our problems in Somerville aren't probably terribly different from the ones in Lynn. Somerville is also a fairly diverse city as far as ethnicity and race and class, and whenever you have all of that diversity in a very, very small, densely packed area, there are tensions, and there's places where we're not quite sure how to navigate it together, and a lot of what the Somerville Human Rights Commission does is informational. We work really hard to make sure that everyone in Somerville knows all of their rights, and that their rights aren't limited by citizenship status or class or race or ethnicity. So we do a lot of informational campaigns about housing rights, LGBT rights, all sorts of things. But additionally, the Somerville Human Rights Commission has a certain degree of has case power. We can review allegations of discrimination. If necessary, we can even subpoena people and make rulings. We have a very wide-ranging ordinance. And so we end up doing things like currently, I won't go into details because I'm not supposed to, but we look at allegations in, say, public housing of discrimination against people for, right now, primarily race and class reasons. We do a lot of stuff with local businesses and the way they treat employees or customers based on potential status. But again, when we have that subpoena power, we try really hard not to use it. Our feeling is if we use it, if we're forcing people to talk to us, we've already lost. So a lot of what we're doing this year, especially, is just relationship building. Going out there in the community and making sure people know that we're available as a resource to them. And just making sure that they know that when they do feel oppressed, they're not alone.
And what's the best way that you found to do this education? What's the best?
That's still very much a work in progress for us. If you have ideas, we'd love to hear them. We're trying, because it's tough, because you think of a way that works for you as a person, a lot of online new media stuff, but then you realize that the people who most need to hear it are the people least likely using those things. So there's a lot of just face-to-face going out there. Next week I'm supposed to be having a listening session at one of the Somerville public housing buildings. We're going to be talking to the Haitian Coalition. We just have to go out there and be seen, because the more traditional new media ways, which may appeal to me as a person, don't necessarily reach all the people we want to reach.
In trying to talk to people, in stores and, with discrimination and customer service especially. Have you found it any difference when you treating minorities? Is it harder to reach them to treat everybody equally? Because I've kind of run into that myself. It's harder to talk to minorities about these things than it is to talk about basically white people.
I think that's probably symptomatic of larger issues. It's been established, and we're seeing this now with healthcare reform, that minorities, especially Hispanics and African Americans, tend to be less trustful of institutions. So getting people to buy in that we're not there to get them, we're not going to play gotcha, is always a challenge. That's why we're trying right now, especially, to build those relationships before they're needed. Like, we would hate to have the first time they know we're around and we're coming to investigate a complaint. But it's also, I think, to some degrees, we're victims of, Somerville's changing demographically. It hasn't necessarily changed all that much politically yet. And so getting that buy-in is also a challenge. And I think the only way to do it is just got to keep plugging away at it.
We have a question now for Rasan. And Rasan, I wanted to thank you for coming up from Boston tonight. Can you tell us a little bit about your work you do with the Lawyers Committee that helps us all in the fight for equality?
Certainly. I mentioned earlier some of the things that our office is involved in, particularly the low-wage immigrant worker project that we have. We also, again, generally handle race and national origin discrimination cases. And the way we come across those cases, people call us with intakes or they find us on the internet, and we'll evaluate the cases and determine whether or not it's a matter that we can handle for them by pursuing litigation, either filing cases at the Mass Commission Against Discrimination or in state or federal court. Sometimes it's just simple letter writing. Sometimes people change their tune when they get a letter from a lawyer. We also do some legislative advocacy if there are ever any bills that will have an impact on historically disenfranchised communities. We make it a point to go and advocate on behalf of those. There was a bill proposed to require municipalities, police departments to collect motor vehicle stop data so we can begin to analyze what type of racial profiling is happening, if any, and certainly we believe that it is, but when nobody's required to collect the data, we don't know about that. Again, we're trying to monitor. There's been recent guidance that came down from the U.S. Department of Education on school discipline, and so we're really trying to get the word out about that, and we're also trying to monitor issues where there are significant disparities in school discipline. Who are the students that are being disciplined, and how are they being disciplined? Is it in-school suspensions? Is it out-of-school suspensions? And what are the racial breakdowns of those types of suspensions? Also looking at charter schools and how they are disciplining students. And you'll see that there are gross disparities along those lines. We'll also look at police misconduct cases. Those usually end up being filed in federal court as well. And I think something that's very unique that we have as a civil rights organization that we're really proud of is our Economic Justice Project. And essentially, the way we operate is we're a small nonprofit organization, but whenever we have cases, we partner with some of the large law firms in Boston who handle the cases with us on a pro bono matter, so nobody gets charged or has to pay any attorney's fees for the work that we do. But oftentimes within law firms, you have the litigation attorneys, but then you have the corporate attorneys who do transactional work and don't go into court and litigate, but they still want to do pro bono work and give back. So our Economic Justice Project gives them an opportunity to come into communities and provide free business legal advice or free business legal consideration. So for minority entrepreneurs or business owners that are seeking to serve communities of color and they're thinking about starting their business, what are the things they need to know about entity formation or looking at and reviewing leases or what type of employment contracts they need to enter into. And so there are free workshops and clinics that we provide through the resources of our pro bono partners that help people get that information as they're thinking about starting their businesses. And we also have a 6-week Grow Your Own Business course where they get information about the legal considerations and microfinancing and marketing. So that's kind of a broad brush of the things we do. We also do community advocacy as there are issues that come up in the community. We're there to advocate and to lend our voice as a historic civil rights organization in the city.
We actually, here at the Ford School, this is a community school, so it's opened up to the community, and folks from the community can come in almost any hour of the day, and even sometimes at night, and can feel welcome. And it's interesting because we have the dichotomy. We have the Ford School here, and then we have the KIPP Academy, which is a charter school further down the way in the Highlands. And sometimes that's created tension for us in the city. And so I wanted to thank you a little bit for talking about that issue in particular, because it's something that's coming up as an issue this election year. And I wanted to take a moment to open it up to the floor again. Does anybody have any questions at all that they would like to ask the panel?
Being done in Lynn for people of color to get better employment. I found it very shocking when I was reading through the email and I saw all of these people from City Hall, police officers, firefighters, and very little people of color are employed through City Hall, police officers, or firefighters.
The question was, is there anything being done in the city of Lynn to increase employment for people of color? And those are some interesting statistics that you referred to. That was recently done where Lynn is almost a minority-majority city, where the majority would be the sum of all people of color who live in the city. And when you look at employment in the city, the numbers don't necessarily reflect that fact. So I'd like to turn it over to the panel for anybody who would like to take that question, if anything is being done, or if what you would like to see done if nothing is being done.
I do know that we are working harder towards creating a public safety community that mirrors our community. A lot of that comes with advocacy. There have been a lot of community groups that have been formed and have been fighting towards ensuring that, there is an equal voice, equal right. One of the things that I can say is that there were probably over 30 minority Democratic delegates that were added on to join us in the convention that's coming up this summer. I know that there's being big pushes through North Shore Community College to engage and enroll students that are non-traditional, and a lot of them are minorities. And they push to, a lot of them are studying criminal justice or are doing like the EMT courses and stuff like that, and they do offer some scholarships and stuff like, and financial aid to ensure that they are getting trained for a lot of these positions. And it goes back to education. In order to be a public a public safety person, you either going to go off to the Marines and do 8 years term, or you're going to go get an education. And that's the big, ensuring that these students that are coming up from the Lynn Public Schools are career ready and are going into college. And that's a big push that the state has channeled down through Lynn Public Schools. And I know that we have gotten a lot of grants to ensure that we're pushing kids to graduate. And we have some officials here that would tell you that the graduation rate has increased.
If you want a city job, the best way to get it is to know a guy. Yeah. And so if you want to see more people of color with city jobs, you got to become the guy. Like in Somerville, as I was saying, the demographic change, we still have an all-white city council where diversity is, are we going to elect the Italian guy or the Irish guy? If we want a city government that looks like Somerville, and if you have the same thing in Lynn, you probably want to start electing people who look like you. If you want to know a guy, the best way to do that is to be the guy.
I think this question is linked to many things. Better employment can mean better salary, but I think it also means better working conditions. But also I think this question is related to education. And right now we have a broken immigration system which is preventing immigrants to move up. So I'm bringing this point here because in this audience we have people who vote. So I will ask you to vote. You are the voice for the people who don't have access to education. So it's like we have a legal system preventing immigrants to move up. So for those who can vote, I would like to ask you to vote for the people who cannot vote.
What started us thinking about having a forum was about 6 years ago when the black firefighters in Lynn won a federal lawsuit against the city of Lynn about hiring. Previous to that, 75 firefighters were hired. 6 were Latino and none were black. And when they went to federal court, the judge ruled in their favor and asked also stated to the plaintiffs, how about the police department? That's how bad it was. And since then, there have been a number of black firefighters and Hispanic firefighters. This is very important. If you could zero in on this, just a little breakdown of hiring in the city of Lynn. This is at the heart of what we're doing, because the thing about poverty is jobs. The heart of fighting against poverty and raising yourself out of it is the job situation. But City Hall sent me this list that said that in City Hall there are 116 workers, 107 are white. Police Department, 206 workers, 174 white. Fire Department, ISD, the total was that 89% of Lynn City workers are white, and the rest of them are people of color. That's something I'd like to find out if any of you have dealt with in any other city, because this is the heart of what we're trying to do here. How does it change? Is the role of the mayor in hiring? I don't think any of us here in the coalition is suggesting you lay off people and hire people, others. We're saying when there's retirement, and a lot of people are being retired, how do you hire people into these positions, and how do you train people? Like we talked about education. There are plenty of educated people in the black and the Hispanic communities and the Asian communities who are looking for jobs. This is part of what we're all about, is trying to get people good jobs and have a good balance in City Hall.
So that's a great point. The Lawyers Committee was actually involved in those lawsuits that challenged the hiring practices of police and fire departments. And there's actually a consent decree in place in certain municipalities that require hiring that does not go by strict rank order. And so when I say strict rank order, there's an entrance exam that people have to take to be able to be hired as either a policeman or a police officer or a firefighter. But they rank those scores just by the numbers. And overwhelmingly, minority candidates score lower. Now there's a lot of discussion and research out there as to why that is. The prevailing argument is that there are cultural biases that are within those exams, but there's another piece of it that the exams aren't necessarily job related, or that there are other exams out there or other testing procedures out there that are more related to the job. So there are consent decrees in place that require certain hiring quotas or procedures that for every 4 candidates, one of them must be a consent decree candidate that gets hired or moved to the top of the list. And here's a good point to make, though. It's not that you're moving up somebody who didn't pass the exam to hire them first, or that you're moving somebody who's unqualified. These are all people who passed the exam. Some people, one person may have scored an 88 and the other person scored a 90. Now, does that mean that the person who scored the 90 is a better officer or firefighter? Not necessarily. That just may mean that they're a better test taker. But there are other qualifications that can't be assessed through an exam. So those consent decrees are in place until the departments reach parity with what the demographics of the community look like. But when you're going every 1 for 4, it's not always going to work out. The other problem, though, is you want to push for these hirings to happen, but you're not getting a lot of applicants that are taking the exams because there's a lot of resistance or reluctance to apply for the, to take the exams. And then for the municipalities that are not covered by the consent decrees, there's no obligation for the municipality to use that hiring model where they do one for every 4. So those are some of the challenges that are out there. My recollection is that Lynn is still under the consent decree. I'd have to double check. But I think, so so the push needs to be to get more people to apply and to get more people to take the exams. There's currently a case, and it's very unfortunate that we litigated. There was closing arguments in 2011 or 2012, and we're still waiting for a decision from the judge on determining whether or not the test that was used for the sergeant's promotional exam, because that's another thing. You want people on the force, but you also want people in decision-making authorities or supervisory positions. And the question on that lawsuit is whether or not that exam was job-related. Could they have used another exam? We still haven't received an opinion from the judge, and that's been since 2012. So continue to get the push out to get people to take more of the exams.
It's like, it almost appears to me that in Lynn, it's a little, I don't know how it is in your towns. To me, for what I know, it's working as an organizer. It's a conscious effort to keep us out, to keep minorities out. It's not an accident, it's not a lack of education, it's the old network that needs to keep hold of their power. And the only people that they prop up is their own. So that's the fact of Lynn.
If you wanted to, how many people in this room would know how to go about taking a civil service exam to get one of these city jobs? Quick, raise your hands again, please. Right, most of the people in this room don't know how to do it. I don't know how to do it. And so, but you know who does know how to do it? That the police officer's cousin, the alderman's brother-in-law. These are guys who take the test. Because again, so these are guys who are going to have those jobs. These are guys who are going to be involved. And you're right. I don't think any city is doing a good enough job of making sure that everyone who can take these tests does take these tests. Because, you know.
It seems like you guys will almost make it sound like it's a bunch of accidents that led to a bad situation. We have to stop thinking that these accidents keep happening, that we end up bad. Why don't we start talking about reforming the city government more?
I didn't think I was saying that at all.
I don't think you did. I don't think anybody did. I think that it just seems like, people don't know what the test is, or people don't know this. We need to call a spade a spade. This being a conscious effort to keep minorities out. Let's get them in.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Ruben. I'm a North Shore Community College student, and I currently live in the city of Lynn. And based on what he's saying, I definitely agree, because I feel at my age that the opportunities for minorities are being left out. They're closing the doors on us. City Hall or the city government, it's not providing us, it's not helping us to get there. Again, this is my own personal opinion, that there's not an opportunity given to us. You know, there may be an opportunity given to others, but not to us. And that refrains us from moving forward, because at times we could be scared because we don't know what the ultimate decision will be, based upon what the decision is. So I believe that's just my take on that. You know, that's one of the issues. Another of the issues that I can think of, being 27 years old, I lived in Lynn, ex-gang member of the city of Lynn, now a college student. It's that.
I want to say congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Another thing that comes to mind is that the youth and those that are coming along are fearful. They're fearful of the city. They're fearful of the police officers. We have shootings. We have, I'll bring this up. We had Dennis Reynoso. Whatever happened there happened, dead. You know, prior to that, we've had police shootouts where people are being killed. The community itself is scared. How do we move forward from this? You know, and it's not just on the educational side, it's also on those that are in the city's government right now. What are they giving us? What what hopes, what inspiration are they giving us for us to move forward? You know, I don't see any right now. I don't see any.
What was your name again?
Ruben,
Ruben.
correct.
I wanted to ask you too, because I feel like a lot of us can feel like these problems are totally like insurmountable. We can't get past them. We're going to be living with them forever. If you'd be willing to tell us, how did you go on the path that you did? You'd like to take a microphone?
Sure.
If you don't mind standing up.
As Laura said, education is the key to everything, pretty much. You know, I was a troubled teenager in the city of Lynn. I got caught up with many gangs, and it took me a lot of going in and out of jail, you know, as a juvenile, then as an adult. But then I had that one person who helped me. You know, I had that one person, and I ended up completing my GED. I dropped out of school when I was 16. I didn't have that support.
Who ended up helping you?
Operation Bootstrap. It's an ABA education center in Lynn. I spent 6 months there. Then I passed 3 GED tests while I was at Operation Bootstrap. Then when I was incarcerated, I completed the remaining of my test, which, you know, I then passed my GED. So I made a decision when I came out after seeing all these prisoners, all these inmates being in there, that so much needed this education, because inmates are not criminals because they want to be criminals. Mostly it's because the community itself or governments turn their backs on them, and it leads them to do, you know, criminal stuff again. And so I moved on from that. Who helped me out? Having a good family, having people, teachers that cared, you know, having programs in Lynn as straight ahead ministries. First day I was released from jail, brought me on to the college, having Project Enable at North Shore Community College, which is a program that helps those that are first to go to college, and just empowering yourself, being able to set a goal and be determined as to what it is that you want to do. And so that is why I'm saying, you know, that we need that extra push. We need the people from the city, we need the mayor, we need police officers, the firefighters, to push us, to help us, not to look down upon us based on our color or based on our lack of education, you know. It's mostly, they're there, open the doors to us, help us get there. And that's just my take, you know. So that's just where I stand right now, you know. And I would like to mention, today I am the Secretary of Valley USA, which is the Voice of Adult Learners. It's a national organization which promotes and helps those adult learners. On a monthly basis, I travel to different states and I promote adult education, and I try to inspire, you know, those that are left behind, adult learners, ESL learners, to make it to where I have, to surpass any obstacles that they face, whether it's a personal obstacle, whether it's any sort of obstacle, you know, so you can make it, because there is light at the end of the tunnel. This is my take. Thank you.
And you heard Ruben talk about all of the nonprofit organizations in this city that are really filling a role that the private sector has not necessarily lived up to in their role as job creators. They're really, you know, these are organizations that are so critical and so vital, and if you have any opportunity to do it, go down and volunteer a little bit, any of these organizations. Volunteer your time. If somebody helped you at some point, help somebody else, pay it forward, because these organizations are always in danger of losing funding. And any kind of grant opportunities, there are a growing amount of nonprofits, and there's a shrinking pool of money that they have access to do the wonderful things that they do. So if anybody has any time at all or any inclination, I think we should all have the inclination to donate some of our time, some of our effort and energy to these organizations. And Ruben, I want to thank you. We got to look for this guy on the ballot in the city of Lynn sometime soon.
We should. Hey, I just came from Operation Bootstrap from helping a class literally 20, 30 minutes ago. So it can be done. It's not like it can't be done. It's about devoting your time to do it.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Ruben, everybody.
The thing that gets me is that there's so much political apathy in the city. I think there's like 38 to 40,000 people that are registered voters. And in the last election, maybe, because it was a big election, maybe 12,000 voted. We haven't had a lack of good minority.
Oh yeah, I'll repeat the question. it's tough to get these out. The cord doesn't reach quite the post.
We haven't had a lack of good minority candidates, but it seems as though people don't get behind them. People don't back them. Sometimes people from their own communities. And everybody, like, north of Wyoming Square is going to vote. And everybody south of Wyoming Square, it seems very apathetic. They want to be the guy, but they're not get behind any to put the guy there. So what can we do to make people become more civically engaged?
The question was, what can we do to increase engagement, involvement, and everything? Laura, you said you.
We as a community, regardless whether you're minority, disabled, elderly, we need to get out there and advocate for ourselves, advocate for people that are in these roles or that are running for, let's say, state representation. We just missed an opportunity in Lynn and our nonprofit world to gain funding through the federal government. They gave it to every city, Lawrence, Chelsea, you name every big urban city in this region got to tap into $1.7 million of federal granting. We did not have anybody at a state level to advocate for our community. We have 100+ nonprofit organizations here in Lynn, and we did not tap into this resource because we had no state representation up there. And I'm not saying that they weren't out there doing their jobs, and I'm not saying that but we were not self-advocating. We do not have anybody in the city right now that coordinates any of all of our nonprofits. We're lacking like systemic kind of like check and balances, and at one point or another, us as a community need to pick these right people and follow these right people up to ensure that that we're being not just represented here in Lynn in our own political little circle, but we also need to be represented in a state level so that we can get our needs met. I'm part of the Human Rights Commission. Today we heard part of some of the immigration raids that have been happening here in Lynn through the state police and immigration. And they were collaborating with the Lynn police, and there were 4 of them. And a lot of people got deported, and there were a lot of questions about racial profiling. And there were a lot of questions of whether or not people that are undocumented were going to step up and report crimes against their own people because of their being scared of what was going on with them. This is the time where we need to just be community advocates, and we need to rise up and say, hey, someone over there that's represented us in a state level, can we bring back undocumented people getting licenses and being insured so that we don't have all of this racial profiling happening right now, so that fathers aren't and mothers aren't being deported and leaving their children here, so that they're also kind of like being part of the Department of Social Services. I know what it's, there are people out there that are in domestic violence relationships that are not reporting that they're being hurt and violated because they're afraid of coming out and seeking help from the police because of risk of deportation. We need to get out there and advocate for some of these people that do not have a voice. And as far as the politics, the only way that you can get any answers regarding our city politics are we need to ensure that we're advocating, we're going there, we're knocking on the doors, that we become part of their community and ensuring that our rights and our needs are being met.
They say America is a dream country, and when we come here, we're having a hard time. And people, they have, the experience, and they finish school, college, and all these things. How you guys help people, they can find a job, or how you guys train them because they already know what they're doing, but they're having a hard time to find a job because of the education of how they learn. And also like the adult education, they're having a period of time because when you put somebody adult and they have many responsibilities to go to school and you give them shorter period of time, it will be hard for them to learn. Or sometimes they will say, okay, coming in this time and this time you have to leave the school. That means the city is not helping. What you guys going to do for this kind of situation and help the immigrant?
That was a question surrounding immigrants, new Americans, folks who have come here from all over the world in search of the American dream. And when they get here, they find that they have difficulties attaining housing or employment, finding the right education, how to go about getting all of those things. And so I guess the question would be, what can be done? And what is being done? But also, if nothing is being done, or something that the level of satisfaction isn't there as far as what's going on now, what can we do in order to help newly arrived Americans?
I would like to turn it over to some of the public school personnel that is here right now and how the challenges that they have in some of their classrooms when they do get new immigrants and when they do have the lack of services needed to help them. They basically just get planted in the classroom and there's no ELL support. They have to differentiate, basically have a second grader start at kindergarten level, and I mean, there's no resources for some of these teachers, and I know because I work at a school, so I mean, I would like to hear from them, I mean, in helping, and how is the city helping all of the newcomers? Is there a 101 course? Are we help, besides the New England Center, who else is helping these people transition? And I hate to say this, who else is helping you guys transition into jobs, into housing, into any of these things? They come and there's no services.
So actually, this is something that Somerville's been working really hard on for quite some time. And tomorrow morning at Somerville High School, 57 languages will be spoken. I say that because, as a simple fact of the matter, if we leave it all to the city of Somerville, they cannot possibly have the resources to provide 57 language translators. They cannot possibly have the resources to do all the things we all agree as a society need to happen, make sure that people are fully included in what they get here. And I say this because I'm always leery when we talk about, well, what's the government doing? The government works for us. It does some of the things we need done, but we can't leave it just to the state, because you may have heard all the government's kind of broke. So when it's like, what am I doing to help immigrants? I am, as part of my Human Rights Commission work, I am working to make sure that they are aware of all available resources that are available to them, all the rights they do have, but it can't just be, what is the government doing? Because the problems are bigger than any state, any government can handle. So the real question, if you leave here with nothing else, is what can I do to make sure that the American dream isn't limited to just me?
Thank you again for having me, and I appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about what it is we do at the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights. I think there are a lot of issues that were raised here that are relevant to the health and well-being of the city of Lynn, and particularly the Highlands community. I think a critical point was raised that probably deserves a little more exploration, and that's that tension between what is overt or intentional discrimination and efforts to keep certain people out versus cronyism and nepotism, and how the city's demographics continue to change, but the political structure does not represent or reflect the city. And so teasing that apart, there are probably instances of where there are acts of discrimination that are intentionally contributing to that. And then sometimes there are things where it's just nepotism because it's somebody's uncle, daughter, nephew, niece. And then there's some where there's an overlap and it's a blurred line between both. But I think the more that the conversation is had, I think more truths will come to the surface. And certainly from our perspective as a civil rights organization, when we can discern that there is discrimination, we want to do something about it. And then I think there are great opportunities for this city and this community to really talk about and engage in economic development and economic justice. And we'd be more than pleased to come out and do some workshops focusing on economic justice. So continue the struggle, continue the fight, continue the seeking of justice.
I definitely have to follow that. Advocate for yourself. Advocate for your community. Advocate for change and collaborate with like all of the city officials. Make sure that your voice is heard. That's the only thing that I have to basically contribute. And if you know that there are any people that are being discriminated upon because of their race, gender, whether they are here undocumented or not, or whether they're a language, please help them. And there are human rights commissions. There are a lot of people right now that are working in Lynn that are helping advocate for a lot of the new people that are migrating to our city. Thank you.
Folks can remember an individual named Frederick Douglass, who spent probably about 5 years in Lynn, great abolitionist, who once said that power concedes nothing without demand. So I think some of the suggestions people made, people should act on. I mean, it's not like they're going to come to your door and knock on your door. You're going to have to knock on the doors of power. We at ECHO think power is not a bad word. Our definition of power is to get people to act on their own beliefs and their faith. It's never a bad thing. So when my folks came into this country, the Irish, they were treated rather cruelly by white Anglo-Saxon Protestants who seemed to run the roost at that time. And what did the Irish do? Well, the Irish worked their way up into positions of power. They became police officers, judges, and politicians, and worked within their community. I'm sure at that time, it seems still today, you're going to deal with people within your own community and help them out. Well, I think that other folks have to sort of push that door open too, and seek positions of power themselves, and not look for others to do that. As I said, ECHO is going to continue to work with more and more congregations in Lynn, all the way up to Gloucester. And when people mention lack of power within the immigrant population, those are some of the same congregations we're talking to right now in trying to get them to join. And it's not just congregations. People mentioned Operation Bootstrap. They're a member of ECHO now. So I think that we have to encourage people. That's sometimes all people need. Get them encouraged to think of the possibilities and not think of reasons not to be involved, but reasons to be involved. So thank you for letting us have this opportunity.
As Ella Baker said many years ago, strong people don't need strong leaders. It means that we can make the difference. And as an organizer at the Workers' Center, I don't think that members can have to rely just on the organizer. I think they can do the difference. They can organize as well. I think that when organization relies only on the organizer or the director of the organization, it's not good. So as an organizer, I feel that we have to create the space for the people to use their talents, their potential, so we can make the difference. One of the things that we are trying to change at the Workers' Center is that when people come to the Workers' Center, the first thing that they ask is, we need an attorney. And I respect the attorneys, but I think the most important part for us before to go to the attorney is to provide the education, what to do before. No wait until you are fired. There are many things that you have to do before you get fired. So this is the thing that we want to change at the Workers' Center, that we want to provide the education. What to do when you feel that you are being discriminated. So once we provide the education and the worker knows their rights, we can call our brothers to help us with the case. Thank you.
About a year ago, someone said something to me that blew my mind, and it's affected how I've approached things ever since. And what I was told was, there's no such thing as a leader. Leadership is something you do, but it's never who you are. And the mind-blowing thing about that is that it means that if no one else is a leader, and leadership is not something that can offshore other people, I have to step up and exercise leadership. The problems facing our society are real. They're huge. They're existential. They're bigger than any one person can handle. So if you're sitting around waiting for someone else to lead you to the promised land, you're not going to get there. So whatever you have to give, whatever you have to help make this a better city, a better state, a better country, a better world, do it. You have something special in you. Share it. And hopefully, I'm utterly just gobsmacked by how many people are here. We would never have gotten this many attendees in a Somerville meeting like this. So clearly, we have a community of people who care. So my question is, tomorrow when you wake up, what are you going to do to show us you care?
I'd like to thank all of you for coming out tonight. There are a million different things going on today. I know it's tax time, and for our Jewish friends, it's second Seder? Okay. But I just want to thank all of you because, like I said, there are many things you could be doing, but you chose to be here, and that means a lot to us. And I did want to mention that Maria Carrasco asked me to pass out some of these flyers for a May Day March and Rally for Immigrant Workers' Rights coming up on May 1st. And I won't say that I'd say she exercises leadership on the school committee, and she's also exercising leadership on the new Lynn Coalition. So with that said, I'd like to thank all of you once again for coming out, and thank our panelists for all participating. You guys were wonderful. Give them a round of applause, everybody.